Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. And this lesson is going to be about the children of Israel, part two. But instead of biblical proof, we're going to see historical proof about the children of Israel and to truly show that there are the Negroes who have went into slavery. So, without further ado, let's start. We're going to check first Luke chapter 21, verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. This is Jesus speaking. Jesus is saying, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the destruction of Jerusalem is near. Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. So he's warning, he's giving a warning to the apostles, but as a prophecy for for all Israel, for all Judea, basically, that when they see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then they should flee Judea and go to the mountains. 22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Verse 23. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. Verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So Christ is saying that the people in Israel, the Judeans, the Israelites living in Judea in those times, shall they have to flee, and that they're going to fall by the edge of the sword, and they're going to be led away in captivity into all nations. This is what Christ is saying. So we're going to check a book written by a scholar called Rudolph R. Windsor. It's called From Babylon to Timbuktu. Let's see what it says. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. So we can see here that it's saying that because Christ prophesied that the Romans would come and destroy Jerusalem. And this historical book is saying that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Well, it doesn't say Jewish, it's just say the slave markets were full of black Jews. Black Jews, the Jews as slaves. Let's continue. This book is called Ebos, Hebrew Exiles from Israel. Amazing Facts and Revelations. It says in chapter 7, Jewish Origin of the Ebos, Perspectives from History and Divine Revelation. The first British explorers who met the Ebos of Nigeria were quick to identify them as a branch of Hebrews. So, the British explorers here, they saw that this tribe in Africa, the Igbo tribe in Africa, and they recognized them and identified them as a branch of Hebrews. Let's continue. Besden, 1938, and so simply referred to them as Hebrews, Hebos, Ebos, and later Ebos. The early Igbos who knew very little or no English, following the pronunciation of the new version of their original name by their colonial masters, deviated from the name Ivit, as in Ivit Aguileri, from Ivrit, Ifit or Ihit, and began to use the popular name and foreign language of the colonialists, and so also referred to themselves and as Hebo, a corruption of Hebrew, or accepted to be called Hebo, Ebo or Ebo, as a way of associating themselves with the emergent new culture of the colonial master. This corrupt version of the English word Hebrew. So, as you can see here, Hebo or Ebo are a corrupt version of the pronunciation of the name Hebrew. Let's check on further. Now let's take a look at this pamphlet over here. During slavery, it says to be sold on board the ship. I can't read that. On May next of whatever ferry is a choice cargo of about 100 fine, healthy, fine Hebos, just arrived from the Windward and Rice coast. So it says fine Hebos. Why didn't they say fine Africans? They could have just said that, but they knew that these Hebos here are Hebrews. Hebrews. They were selling Hebrews. Let's keep going. This book is called Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. This is a map of the Kingdom of Ouida, 1727. So let's read what's going on here. Ouida on the Bight of Benin was the largest single embarkation point for captives shipped from West Africa. Its emergence as a slave port dates from the late 17th century, but the Kingdom of Dahomey conquered it in 1725 to 1727 and ruled it until the late 19th century. Slave trafficking at Ouida, as at most other African ports, though open to private traders, was subject to state oversight. Okay, so now we can see here that Ouida was the largest single embarkation point for captives shipped from West Africa. So now let's read this book over here. Ouida, the social history of West African slaving port. It says over here, although Ouida is the spelling of the town's name current nowadays, it occurs in European sources between the 17th and 19th centuries in various other forms. In English, most commonly, Ouida. In Dutch, Fida. In French, Juda. And in Portuguese, Ajuda. So we can clearly see here that Ouida in French is called Juda. What's going on over here? It seems familiar, this name. Let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 1. These are the sons of Israel, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. So Judah is the son of Israel, which is the progenitor of the children of Judah, of the nation of Israel. Then Joseph and Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. So let's continue. This book is called Creole New Orleans, Race and Americanization. It says here, between June 1719 and January 1731, 16 slave trading ships arrived in Louisiana from the Senegal region. 6 ships came from Judah. Hold up. So, 6 ships that went to America with slaves came from Judah. Ouida, a slave trading post on the Gulf of Benin near Dahomey, and one from Cabinde, Angola, during the same period. The slave trade from Senegal intensified after 1725. Between February 1726 and January 1731, 12 slave ships from Senegal landed 3,259 slaves at Belize, at the mouth of the Mississippi River. During the same period, one ship from Judah landed 464 slaves at the same port. The only other slave trading ship that came from Africa to Louisiana while the colony was under French rule arrived in 1743 and was from Senegal. The African nations represented among the slaves, as well as the patterns of introducing them into New Orleans, contrast sharply with those that of Anglophone United States. The African slaves brought to the Chesapeake during the 18th century came mainly from the Bight of Benin and were heavily Igbo. Remember that Igbo was a false or a corrupt version of the name Hebrew? So these Africans that went to the Chesapeake right here were heavily Igbo. So let's keep going. This book is called The Black Jews of Africa. Let's start over here. As Gilman observes, the very concept of color is a quality of otherness, not of reality. For not only blacks are black in this amorphous world of projection, so too are Jews. Huh. So you mean to tell me that the Jews are black based on this guy called Gilman? Let's keep going. The heretics ask, why are most Gentiles fair-skinned and handsome, while most Jews are dark and ugly? So here they're saying that they used to call, the other nations, still actually, fair-skinned and beautiful, and the Jews were called dark and ugly because, like I said before in the first video, we, in the eyes of the other nations, black people are inferior and ugly. They call us ugly. Well, they don't have even to say it, but in their eyes, we're ugly because we are dark-skinned people. So let's keep going. Let's start at the top. The argument for a degenerative Jewish nature coexisted easily with the belief that the Jews inherited distinctive personality traits. This view has a long history in European science. Some early Spanish writers of the 17th century were especially fond of arguments that connected racial heritage with behavior. Prudencio de Sandoval asked in 1604, who can deny that in the descendants of the Jews there persists and endures the evil inclination of their ancient ingratitude and lack of understanding, Just as in Negroes, there persists the inseparability of their blackness. So this guy right here, Prudencio de Sandoval, he asked in 1604, why do the Jews act the way that the Negroes do, and also their inseparability of their blackness? So that means that the Jews and the Negroes have the same color, black. Let's keep going. 17th century English travelers renewed the accepted stereotypes of Jewish racial otherness, including the belief that Jews were black-skinned. When William Brereton noted his impressions of the Jews in the synagogue of Amsterdam in 1635, he observed that the Jewish men are most black. Hold up, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that if you take a look back in history, that the Jews were black? But when we look now today, the Jewish people are Caucasians? What happened? How? How did this happen? What kind of metamorphosis is this? Well, let's keep going though. And insatiably given unto woman. So the black men, the black Jews, the Jews that he saw, which were black, they loved women. Doesn't that sound like the black man today? The black man always loved women. We always have. And these were the same thing happening with the Jews that they saw in Amsterdam. Let's keep going. Drawing on contemporary prejudices linking blackness and licentiousness. The Scottish minister Robert Kirk, when he paid a visit to a synagogue in London in 1690, observed more than 200 Jews worshiping and noted they were all very black men. Very black men. How is it that these people today are Caucasians? Let's keep going though. But I don't understand. So people today are being naive and are being lied to, but not because they don't know, but because people today don't like to read. They don't like to do their own research. We live in a time where knowledge has increased, especially because of the internet and technology. You have information in your hands, but nobody is using this information to find truth. But nobody knows this because people are not looking for the right answers. They're not looking for to find the truth. They just take whatever they've been taught and regurgitate it to everyone they see without even knowing what the hell they're talking about. But let's keep going. And indistinct in their reasoning as gypsies. This point of view dominated the vision of the Jew so much that Adam G. de Górowski, a Polish nobleman, took every light-colored mulatto for a Jew. By the end of the 17th century, François Maximilien Misson, in a new voyage to Italy in 1714, moderated this opinion, considering that it is a vulgar error that Jews are all black. It is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who, marrying always among one another, beget children like themselves. So the Portuguese, the black Portuguese, the Negroes in Portugal are Jews. Let's keep reading. James C. Pritchard commented on the choleric and melancholic constitution of the Jews, such that they usually have a skin color somewhat darker than the English people. Uh-oh. I will speak about this in the future as well. A lot of people don't know this, but ancient Europe was not Caucasian. It was full of black people as well. The whole earth was black. But that will be a lesson for the future, because I don't think you guys are ready for this. For the 18th and 19th century scientists, the blackness of the Jew was easily incorporated in the rhetoric of racialism, with specific political implication. The theories of Houston S. Chamberlain categorized the Jews in Foundations of the 19th century, 1910, as a mongrel race that had hybridized with the Africans while they were exiled in Alexandria. Gilman asserts that by the middle of the 19th century, being black, being Jewish, being deceased, and being ugly come to be inexorably linked. So, being black and being Jew was linked. It was all the same thing. Let's keep going. It is therefore not only the color of the skin that enables the scientists to see the Jew as black, but the entire physiognomy. So the Jews being black is not only about the skin color, it's about the physical aspect as well. Everything from the nose to the lips to the hair. Let's go on to another page. Kemper, by defining fairness as corresponding to a facial line with an angle of 100 degrees with the horizontal, connected the African and the Jew through the curve of their noses, considering that both African and Jewish nasal types reveal their inferiority. So the African and the Jewish nasal type. So the big nose. The big nose, bro. The African character of the Jew, his muzzle-shaped mouth and race, removing him from certain other races, the eye long and fine, the outer angles running towards the temple, the brow and nose apt to form a single convex line, the nose comparatively narrow at the base, the eyes consequently approaching each other, lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, when swarthy, as it often is, has an African look. So the physiognomy of the Jews, when swarthy means black. Look it up. It has an African look. So the Jews are from, they're black, Africa. Blackness as a common denominator of the inferiority of Africans as well as Jews has a long history in Western culture. It appears as the result of a system of primordial associations shared by Christianity and also by Judaism. The racial promiscuity of Jews and Africans became commonplace in the 19th century and came to be adopted as such by some 20th century anthropology, which declared on occasion that Jews were black. History. So, now we're going into this book. Nature knows no color line. As was already said, the ancient Jews who left Egypt must have been quite Negroid. After mating with Egyptians and Ethiopians for centuries, they were probably even originally Negroid. They were Negro originally. Abraham, according to the Bible, came from Ur of the Chaldees. Chaldea was the seat of Sumerian civilization, which was long considered to be white Aryan, but it was Negroid. Uh-oh. So Abraham came from a place where Negroes come from? Something does not add up here, says Sparing in The Childhood of Art. The discovery, he says, was very disconcerting to literary historians and philologists, for that race was proved to be not a branch of the civilizing Aryans, nor of the gifted Semites, but of a Negroid people having affinities with Mongols. So, the Chaldees, where Abraham comes from, is a place where only Negro people have lived. They were not white Aryans, as they thought it was. Because if you look today, everything that you see, every civilization that was great, most of them, if not all of them, are portrayed to be what? Caucasians. And that's a big mistake. And that's not really a mistake, but more on purpose, deliberately, to fool the entire world. Let's keep going. Tacitus, of about 90 AD, says, many assert that the Jews are an Ethiopian race. For those who don't know, they used to call Africa Ethiopia. So when it says here, Romans have that the Jews are an Ethiopian race, it's basically saying that they used to they assert that the Jews are an African race or a black race, because in Africa you have many different races of black people, but the Negroes are the Jews. Let's keep going. For Romans to have taken them for Ethiopians is clear indication of their color, since the Ethiopians were definitely black to the Romans. That's self-explanatory. Let me start at Waits. Waits says, an interesting gradation of all shades down to the black is exhibited by the Jews. Especially dark were the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The Portuguese Jews were very dark, says Pritchard. The Duchess de Blunt, wife of Napoleon's ambassador to Portugal, said that the Jew, the Negro, and the Portuguese could be seen in a single person. So a Jew, a Negro, and a Portuguese were all the same. They were all the same. They were one single person, basically. So dark were the Jews, especially of Portugal and southern Spain, that many whites thought that all Jews were black or dark. And the thing is that when you keep reading this book, it says that most people will explain that not all the Jews were black, some of them were white, but that's not true, because those people that were white are those converts of today. They converted, but they were not descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes of Israel. They were converts. John Bigelow, who visited Jamaica in 1850, saw the descendants of these Jews and says they were Negroid. So all my brothers and sisters in Jamaica, you are an Israelite, you are a Jew, you are a Hebrew. The Eastern Jews who settled in Austria, Poland, and Russia were Negroid too. Count Adam Górowski of Poland, who visited the United States in 1857, said the Jews of his country strongly resembled American mulattoes. Numbers of Jews, he said, have the greatest resemblance to the American mulattoes. Sallow complexion, thick lips, crisped black hair. Of all the Jewish population scattered over the globe, 1/4 dwells in Poland. I am therefore well acquainted with their features. On my arrival in this country, America, I took every light-colored mulatto for a Jew. Considerable Negro strain was found, too, among the Polish Jews in London. I don't have to say no more. I can really stop this video and tell you all have a good day. The Jews are black people. In case you guys still didn't know this. So now we're gonna go into another book. It's called Volume 1, Western African History. Of the Kingdom of Tombuto. This name was in our times, as some think, imposed upon this kingdom from the name of a certain town so called, which they say King Mansa Suleiman founded in the year of the Haggadah. He so deadly hateth all Jews that he will not admit any into his city, and whatsoever Barbary merchants he understandeth have any dealings with the Jews, he presently caused their goods to be confiscated. So even in Africa, people, the other black races in Africa, they hated the Jews. Our people. That's the reason why when you go into history, they say, oh, black people sold black people into slavery. You guys sold yourselves into slavery. Some of us, it was a little bit of us that did that. But for the majority, it was the other black races that sold our people to the Arabs and to the Caucasians that came later. So the other black races sold our people into slavery. Because the Jews, our people, were hated even in Africa. The inhabitants of Boni, when our author last visited that port, amounted to about 3,000. They are chiefly a mixture of the Igbo or Hebo and the Brass tribes. Remember when we were reading that the Igbos and of Nigeria, they were a branch of the Hebrews, and the Igbo or Hebo was a corrupted version of the word Hebrew. So they were living in Africa. It says here, it is calculated that no fewer than 16,000 of these people alone were annually exported from Boni within the 20 years ending in 1820, so that including 5,000 taken within the same period from New and Old Calabar, the aggregate export of Igbos alone was not short of 370,000. So all of those slaves went to America. So my brothers and sisters in America, those who don't know that you are a Hebrew, you are a Hebrew because you were taken from the Igbo tribe as slaves and sold in America. So now we're going to check Jewish travelers in the Middle Ages. 19 first-hand accounts. The letter of Eldad the Danite, meaning the letter of Eldad from the tribe of Dan, from the children of Israel, being his letter to the Jews of Spain, according to the text printed in Italy about 1480. This is how far back we can go. And this was my going forth from the other side of the rivers of Ethiopia. I and the Jew of the tribe of Asher entered a small ship to trade with the shipmen, and behold, at midnight the Lord caused a great and strong wind to arise, and the ship was wrecked. Now the Lord had prepared a box, and I took hold of it, and my companion, seeing this, also took hold of that box, and we went up and down with it, until the sea cast us among a people called Ramranos, who are black Ethiopians, tall, without garment or clothing upon them, cannibals, like unto the beasts of the field. So this is where Eldad the Danite landed with this other guy that was with him, the other Jew. Among these Ethiopians, there were cannibals. Are not the Ethiopians from ancient times? They're different. But because the Ethiopians that the original Ethiopians were black, very, very dark. And they didn't have straight hair. But let's continue. And the Jew, a merchant of the tribe of Issachar, found me and bought me for 32 gold pieces and brought me back with him to his country. They live in the mountains of the sea coast and belong to the land of the Medes and Persians. So that's where you can find the Jews as well. They fulfill the command, the book of this law shall not depart from thy mouth. So this part here, they still keep the tribe of Issachar. They still keep the commandments. And the sons of Zebulun are encamped in the hills of Paran and reach to their, i.e., Issachar's neighborhood, and pitch tents made of hairy skins which come to them from the land of Armenia. And they reach up to the Euphrates, and they practice business, and they observe the 4 death penalties inflicted by the court. So these Jews here, they still inflict death penalties according to the law. And the tribe of Reuben is over against them behind Mountain Paran. And there is peace and brotherhood and companionship between them. And they go together to war and make roads and divide the spoils amongst themselves. They go on to the high roads of the king of Media and Persia, and they speak Hebrew and Persian. And they possess scripture and Mishnah, Talmud, and Haggadah. And every Sabbath they read the law with accents, the text in Hebrew, and the interpretation thereof in Persian. So you have these Israelites that live here in Medes and Persia. So they're Israelites, but they are Medes and Persians. And the tribe of Ephraim and half tribe of Manasseh are there in the mountains over against the city of Mecca, the stumbling block of the Ishmaelites. They are strong of body and of iron heart. They are horsemen and take the road and have no pity on their enemies, and their only livelihood comes from spoil. There are mighty men of war. One is matched for 1,000. Afterwards, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, arose and took the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh captive, and took them to Hala and Habor and the river Gozan and the cities of Media. And Sennacherib arose a second time and took captive the tribe of Asher and the tribe of Naphtali, and led them to the land of Syria. After the death of Sennacherib, 3 tribes of Israel, being Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, journeyed on their own to the land of Ethiopia. So our brothers and sisters ran from Assyria and walked themselves all the way to Ethiopia and encamped in the wilderness until they came to their border, a 20 days journey, and they slew the men of Ethiopia, and unto this very day they fight with the children of the kingdoms of Ethiopia. So our brothers and sisters, we have some that live in Ethiopia till today. So, and these tribes, being Dan, Naphtali, and Gad, and Asher, dwelt in the ancient Havilah, When you take a look at it, Havilah is in Africa, where gold is, and goodly places in the kingdom of Pavarim. Exodus chapter 28, verse 1. Let's take and take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, even Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. Verse 2. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron, thy brother, for glory and for beauty. Exodus chapter 28, verse 4. And these are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a broidered coat, a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. So now you have the priests from the tribe of Levi, from Aaron's lineage of Israel. And these are the garments that the sons of Aaron should have. You know, a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and so on and so forth. And thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work. After the work of the ephod thou shalt make it. Of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet, and of fine twined linen shalt thou make it. Verse 17. And thou shalt set in it settings of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, and a carbuncle. This the first row. In the second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. Verse 19. And the third row, a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. Verse 20. And the fourth row, a beryl, and an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold in their enclosing. So the breastplate should have 4 rows of 3. 4 rows of 3 stones. Verse 21. And the stones shall be with the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet. Every one with his name shall they be, according to the 12 tribes. So they are on the breastplate of Aaron's descendants, the priests. They should have a breastplate, and on the breastplate there are 4 rows of 3 stones, and in total it will be 12 stones. Those 12 stones represent the 12 tribes of Israel. So now let's take a look at this book called Hebrewisms of West Africa. We have a remarkable sketch of this breastplate, which appeared originally in the Illustrated London News and was reproduced without any acknowledgement by Sir Henry M. Stanley in his volume entitled Kumasi and Magdala. It is inscribed, Ashanti ambassadors crossing the Pra. The breastplate on the central figure, the herald, who is called by Stanley the town crier, is strikingly similar to the breastplate of the high priest among the ancient Hebrews, even to its division into 12 parts. So now we're going to see what he's talking about. Let's take a look at this. This is the ambassador of the Ashanti when they're crossing the Pra. Look at the breastplate. It has 4 rows and 3 places which you would put a stone. And it resembles the garment of the high priests of the sons of Aaron. Take a look at this. 4 rows and 3 stones. Josephus. Let's take a look at this book of Josephus. So he read the epistle at Babylon to those Jews that were there, but he kept the epistle himself and sent a copy of it to all those of his own nation that were in Media. And when these Jews had understood what piety the king had towards God, and what kindness he had for Esdras, they were all greatly pleased. Nay, many of them took their effects with them, and came to Babylon, as very desirous of going down to Jerusalem. But then the entire body of the people of Israel remained in that country. Wherefore there are but two tribes in Asia and Europe, subject to the Romans, while the 10 tribes are beyond Euphrates till now, and are an immense multitude, and not to be estimated by numbers. So you have Israelites in Rome, and you have the other 10 tribes beyond the river Euphrates, which is in Africa. So now you can see on this map right here, Negro land. You can see the Slave Coast, the Benin, and so on and so forth. Now, when you take a closer look of this map, you can see the kingdom of Judah or Judah at the bottom, a little bit to your left. So, this is the end of this video. I hope it was informative. I hope you got a lot of information that you guys didn't know. And there are still a lot of books out there that I can make videos about, and I will make more videos to show, if I have to prove even more, that the Israelites are the black people, the Negroes that were scattered throughout the four corners of the world in slavery during the transatlantic slave trade, and also some of our people that still live in Africa today, in sub-Saharan Africa. So this was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later. Shalom.